Check 1 2. Check 1 2. Okay. Is it a little quiet? Check 1 2 1 2. 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 Check. Okay, sounds fine. We're going to go ahead and get started. If I can ask folks to take their seats, we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. My name is Adam Murray. I have the honor of being the Chief Executive Officer. Thank you. I have the honor of being the Chief Executive Officer at Inner City Law Center, and it's such a pleasure to have you all here today. It's wonderful to see so many people in the same place. Not used to that. We are going to be celebrating some amazing honorees today. We're going to be celebrating the amazing Sheila Kuehl. And also a law firm that's done incredible work for Inner City Law Center and for our clients, Troutman Pepper. Now, my wife and daughter are here with us today. And I just want to say that if, heaven forbid, either of them were ever to be homeless, I would want each and every one of you to do everything you possibly could to help them. It would not matter to me how they'd ended up there, why they were homeless, whose fault it was. I would want you to help in any and every way that you possibly could. And yet tonight in LA County, we will have almost 70,000 people, 70,000 human beings who will be living in our shelters and in our streets tonight. Every one of them, someone's son or someone's daughter. And yet we do not seem to have the sense of overwhelming urgency to solve this crisis that we need to have. When you think about public policy as it relates to homelessness, I encourage you to think about it in 3 levels of intervention. The first level is what most of us collectively do when we provide food, when we provide clothing, when we provide emergency health care, when we try to help somebody who is living on the streets to move into a shelter bed and to have an existence that is less horrible, less painful, to try to reduce the suffering for folks who are living on the streets. These are all things that are noble and appropriate and essential that we do, but we kid ourselves if we think that any of these things is actually ending homelessness. It does not even end homelessness for the individual who we are helping, who is now sleeping in a shelter bed rather than on the streets, which is an improvement, but they are still homeless. The second level of intervention is mostly where Inner City Law Center steps in. We are approached by clients who are struggling with housing instability, and we work with them to try to develop and articulate a pathway to long-term stable housing. And we ask ourselves as lawyers, what can we do to help this family, this individual along that pathway? It leads us to do a lot of homelessness prevention work. About 70% of Inner City Law Center's clients are housed. So it's cases like the elderly couple that we just recently represented who lives in Long Beach. They've lived in the same apartment for a little over 20 years. They pay $660 a month in rent. They're on a fixed income, so that's pretty much all they can afford. And last November, their apartment was purchased by a new owner. And earlier this year, they received a notice from that owner telling them they had 60 days to move out because the owner was substantially renovating the apartment. This couple looked for another apartment, but understandably couldn't find something they could afford, and luckily was referred to Inner City Law Center. We took a look at the notice and very quickly identified that the renovations this landlord was proposing to do did not qualify as substantial under the Long Beach Municipal Code. We informed the landlord's attorney of this, and they promptly rescinded the notice. That couple remains in the home where they've lived for over 2 decades. About 30% of our clients are already experiencing homelessness and living in shelters or living on the streets. And for those clients, very often the pathway to housing involves having income in some way so that they can afford housing. An example of this is Mr. Williams. Mr. Williams grew up in Humble, Texas. A military recruiter came to his high school, and he joined the Navy right out of high school. He served in the Navy for a number of years, but he had some pretty serious mental health challenges while he was in the Navy. He sought treatment, he sought help within the Navy, was misdiagnosed, did not get the help he needed. When he came out of the Navy, he was properly diagnosed with schizophrenia. We met Mr. Williams when he was living in a homeless shelter here in Los Angeles after he had applied to get assistance from the VA, medical assistance from the VA, and had been turned down. We appealed the denial with Mr. Williams' help of that decision. 5 years later, the VA remanded the case. After a number of additional hoops and hurdles we had to jump through, the VA agreed that Mr. Williams is 100% disabled, that his disability is service-connected, and that he should have been getting benefits since he first applied back in 2013. He now has access to VA health care. He's receiving $3,600 a month, and because he went so long without benefits, he actually received $400,000 in retroactive benefits. Last year, Inner City Law Center recovered over $12.6 million for our clients. And that number is especially impressive, I think, if you realize 2 things. First of all, most of our work doesn't result in a monetary reward for our clients, right? When we help somebody get a driver's license, expunge a criminal record, resist an eviction, whatever it might be, that does not translate into any of that $12.6 million. And secondly, 44% of Inner City Law Center's clients live in households with annual incomes under $10,000 a year. What that means is every one of those $12.6 million is directly impacting our clients' housing stability. This is the work that you are supporting when you support Inner City Law Center. This is the work that you are here today because of. This is the work that you love, that we love, and that we are very proud of. But there is another level of homelessness policy advocacy that Inner City Law Center is increasingly engaged in, and that we are going to be increasingly coming to you and asking for your assistance with. And that is, we need to get to the heart of why we have a homeless crisis in the first place, and we actually need to change those conditions. People living on the streets struggle with all sorts of things, as we all do. They struggle with mental health issues, addiction issues, domestic violence issues, unemployment issues, everything we all struggle with. But none of those reasons are the reason that we have a homeless crisis. We have a homeless crisis for a very simple reason, because we have a housing affordability crisis. In the last 15 years, in the county of Los Angeles, the median rent has increased by 54%, and the median renter income in that same time has only gone up by 16%. That disconnect, more than anything else, more than everything else, explains why we have a homeless crisis here in this city and in this county. The General Accounting Office, I never remember what GAO stands for, the US GAO released a study in 2020 that found across the country that for every $100 increase in the median rent, the homelessness numbers in that municipality go up by 9%. We know that there is a very direct connection between housing affordability, particularly for low-income folks, and the amount of homelessness that we have. And not until we have far, far more affordable housing, and particularly affordable housing that is affordable to people making a fairly low wage or having no wage, are we going to end our homelessness crisis. So this is an issue we are going to keep coming back to you about again and again. But until we get there, until we have the affordable housing that we need here in Los Angeles and throughout the state, Inner City Law Center will continue to be focused, as we always have been, on the individual clients that we are serving day in and day out. Last year we served almost 2,500, we closed cases for almost 2,500 clients. And we have a video here to share with you now that is going to highlight some voices from just a few of those clients. Thank you. Every day, the amazing and talented staff at Inner City Law Center work with our partners, our pro bono partners, our nonprofit partners, our government partners to provide incredible services to clients. Clients who are persevering through very dire straits, often who are living on the streets or living in very precarious housing and struggling to maintain that housing or to find a pathway back into housing.
I am a veteran of the Air Force and the Army, and I was homeless for a while. I was legally blind. I couldn't walk. They turned their back on me because for a long time they said I didn't exist. A lot of people in my unit, they committed suicide and stuff like that, and they couldn't take the process. If Inner City Law hadn't been there, honestly, you guys would be reading about me on the news.
It was not only one problem, it was several problems at the same time. Harassment, eviction, my green card. I lost my son, his name was Alex. And within 10 months, I lost my partner too. So there was like a lot of pain. I was going through a lot of depression. I went to the hospital myself. I was sick, I couldn't work. I was late with my rent. My green card was expired, so that was stopping me from getting benefits. Really wanted a lot not to be homeless because we were about to end up on the streets like a lot of people.
I was diagnosed with colorectal cancer, skin cancer, and then plasmablastic lymphoma. I had exhausted my savings, my retirement, ended up losing my home, and fell into homelessness. I was in the hospital receiving chemotherapy, and I remember the nurses coming in and saying that there was an issue with my insurance and asking me if my insurance had changed. And that was when I realized that my Medicare benefits had ended. Not only were my benefits terminated, they were asking for like over $100,000 in back payments. I felt like the Social Security system, the government let me down. I had, paid into this system for over 30 years, thinking that it would be there for me if I needed it, if I became disabled, that it would be there, and it just wasn't.
All of our efforts, all of our education, all of our heart goes into these clients.
Knowing that you can live in a place and if you face eviction, you have the right to an attorney, that's huge.
You have to be able to empathize, and you have to be able to kind of put yourself in the client's shoes and kind of see things through their lens.
I was kind of spiraling because I had reached out to so many other lawyers and trying to get assistance and help with my case, and no one seemed to really have a grasp or understand it or want to deal with something so complex.
My situation was really complicated. I really didn't know what to do, where to start. I called a lot of places, but finally, I was referred to Inner City Law Center. I called Helen the first time. Helen was a person willing to listen to me.
He showed me compassion. He showed me, understanding.
It was a long process. It took about over a year and a half, but I finally was able to get my Social Security benefits restored.
I was able to stay in my apartment. Also, they helped me to get my green card. I really, really appreciate their help. I really feel that I owe them a lot.
All the teams at Inner City Law Center are committed to, building a more just Los Angeles.
We made someone whole, and we affirmed their value because they have inherent dignity and worth.
I think Inner City Law Center is making a huge impact on not just the issue of homelessness, but the multitude of issues that marginalized folks face.
I think there's sometimes like a lot of red tape for certain organizations. They don't have the funding that will let them help people who are like undocumented or things like that.
It is absolutely not possible to do this work if we are not funded.
Inner City Law Center hadn't been there, I really don't know what would have happened.
The support that I was given, you can't put a price tag on that.
Because there's a lot of people like me going through a lot of different situations that if we didn't have organizations like this one, we'd probably be really in bad situations like homeless. In this organization helping me, that make me feel strong and that I'm gonna make it. I'm gonna survive. I'm gonna be okay. I have hope that everything is gonna be better.
Good afternoon. My name is Eric Herzog. I'm a member of the Inner City Law Center Board and a co-chair of today's lunch.
Hi, and I'm Kim Boris, also a member of the board and also a co-chair of today's luncheon.
We want to thank our generous sponsors whose names are displayed on the screens and recognized in the programs at your table. Special thanks to our advocate level sponsor, Judicate West, and to our 5 champion level sponsors, Bird Morella, Houston Hennigan, Latham and Watkins, Munger Tolson Olson, and Troutman Pepper.
This annual event is such a wonderful opportunity for us to come together, to recognize our honorees, and to celebrate the amazing work that Inner City Law Center does every day. So I never say the full name, it's always ICLC. This is also an opportunity for each of us to make a real and measurable impact in the fight against homelessness. This is by far our most important fundraiser of the year. We're happy to announce that as of earlier this morning, this event had already raised $735,000.
We're not done. There's more to do. Every dollar that we raise here today translates directly into the legal services that you've seen, heard about already here today. Those are services that allow people to stay in their homes and to move off the streets. So, we plan to raise in this room today, before everybody leaves, another $100,000.
All right, this is how we're gonna do it. This is how you can have a life-changing, maybe even a life-saving impact on people like Robert, Devin, and Rosa, who you saw in the video just a little while ago. First, take out your phone. Well, let's assume you don't have it out already, kind of under the table. Okay. In order to make a pledge, send a text message to the following number, 41444. Your text message should say, ICLC, space, then the dollar symbol, and then the amount you're pledging, then another space, and your name, and then if you want to add a message, please do so. Now, if you don't remember that, the instructions are on your table. You don't have to have it memorized. You can also just scan the QR code on your program and make a gift right now.
And we know you all know how to use QR codes at this point.
It's true.
Somebody did it at my table already. It works. So just to repeat, you can pledge by texting ICLC, the amount of the gift and your name to 41444, or use the QR code, which will take you directly to the link.
Okay, now, $100,000 is an ambitious goal. We know that. And to help us get there, our board of directors and advisory board members have joined with me and Eric to create a matching gift fund. We're going to match every dollar you give up to a total of $35,000. That means those who are quick to draw, your gift will go twice as far to keep people threatened with homelessness in their homes and help those on the street move into stable housing. And that also means, although we have a goal of $100,000, we're ready, potentially $35,000 there. So we'll have to raise $65,000 today to get to our goal.
So I don't know if we can see how we're doing. We'll take a look at the thermometers when they come up, but we just want to say that no amount is too small. Certainly no amount is too large. The more you give, the bigger difference you're going to make. We're off to a great start already, as you can see. The more you can contribute, the more lives can be changed. Today is an opportunity for all of us to contribute something towards the efforts of this great organization.
Right, and as you know, I'm a transactional lawyer. I can't begin to do the work that ICLC does, but what I can do is support them in their effort of getting there. So that's my way of participating, and I hope that you'll join us in doing so, as many people already are. Thank you very much. So we will continue to check in on our goal throughout the event, but I now have the pleasure of turning over the microphone to the president of the ICLC Board of Directors, Kenneth Trujillo Jemison.
Good afternoon. It's so great to see each and every one of you here today. This event has always been a highlight of the year, and it's great to see everyone back in person. It's been a long time since we've had this. First, please don't stop texting those contributions, even though the thermometer is off the screen. Again, my name is Kenneth Trujillo Jemison. I have the privilege of serving as the board president. And in a moment, I will be introducing our 2023 Katharine Krause Award winner. But before I do that, I first want to thank two sets of people. First, I want to thank the incredible men and women who work every day at Inner City Law Center. If you work at Inner City Law Center, please stand so that we can recognize all that you do. Thank each and every one of you for your dedication and your hard work serving Inner City Law Center's clients every day. You make all of us proud. I would also like to thank those who volunteered pro bono this year to supplement and leverage the work of Inner City Law Center staff. Last year, over 800 people, these are attorneys, students, legal support staff, and non-legal volunteers, donated pro bono services, and the total collective value of those donated services is over $7 million. And thanks to those volunteers, and very special thanks to the Pro Bono Council, who helps coordinate some of those efforts for Inner City Law Center, several of whom are in this room today. Thank you for your involvement and your leadership in this area. That brings me to our first award of the day. Katharine Krause was an Inner City Law Center board member and an early leader in the public interest law community in Los Angeles. And each year we present the Katharine Krause Award to an individual or an entity that has made notable contributions to our client communities. This year, we are pleased to be honoring the law firm of Troutman Pepper for their extensive pro bono work on behalf of Inner City Law Center clients. Right now, for example, Troutman Pepper attorneys are co-counseling with Inner City Law Center on a slum housing case where the owner is seeking to evict tenants from their homes where they have lived for decades. And why? To make way for luxury apartments with much higher rents. Troutman Pepper is at the front lines in defending those tenants against this action. It is my distinct honor to present the 2023 Katharine Krause Award to Troutman Pepper. And here to accept the award on behalf of Troutman Pepper is Inner City Law Center board member and Troutman Pepper partner, Pam Palmer. And along with Pam are some of the Troutman Pepper attorneys who have worked on Inner City Law Center cases recently. That includes Peter Bloom, Natalia Jacobo, Cindy Lee, Alexandra Pritchett, Andrick Zine, and Michelle Rosenberg.
Beautiful. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for coming and welcome. I am humbled and honored to accept the Katharine Krause Award on behalf of my law firm. I want to take a moment to reflect on how we arrived on the stage at this moment and to introduce these talented lawyers standing up here with me who are currently doing pro bono work for the Inner City Law Center and its clients. So Troutman Pepper has a fairly small Los Angeles office and was kind of new to the legal community a few years ago. And we wanted to find a way to channel our pro bono energies to an organization where we could matter, count. And we looked at different options and found Inner City Law Center, which embraced us as a pro bono partner and made us feel valued and welcome. We've been working with Inner City for a number of years. I'm standing up here today not because we won a big case last year or we had some groundbreaking legal victory. We're here because we say yes to many smaller projects, transactional, sometimes advising Inner City itself, sometimes public education, sometimes helping with Inner City's client matters, sometimes litigation. We say yes to the extent we can. And in this way, I feel that what Kenneth said is right. What we hope to do is extend the reach of the talented staff, attorneys at Inner City Law Center so they have a few more minutes freed up in their day to help the clients who need them. I am confident that many of the lawyers in this room who do work for Inner City do exactly the same thing we do. And I also know that Inner City is grateful for your work, just as they're demonstrating their gratefulness for our work today. So thank you. I have standing with me, standing way far back there. It's like, the associates who are working on matters now, and I want to give a shout out and acknowledge them and explain the kinds of things we're doing. Cindy Lee is our local pro bono firm ambassador in Los Angeles. She was encouraged into that role by our firm-wide pro bono partner who came all the way out from Philadelphia today to be with us, Sarah Richmond. Cindy answers the calls of Inner City's pro bono director, Vidya. You know Vidya. You want to say yes to Vidya. And she's gentle with us, but when she calls, either Cindy tries to do it herself or she helps find somebody who's going to do it. Michelle Rosenberg, who's directly behind me, is currently working with Inner City staff to chase after cash judgments that landlords who lost their cases to inner city never paid up. Peter and Natalia and Alexandra are teamed up on a case that Kenneth mentioned. It was a little bit too flattering to us. The truth is, we are embedded in a slum housing matter with the inner city staff to try to bring some justice to a situation where our clients, some 30 of them, were actually thrown out of buildings where they suffered deplorable housing conditions for many years. We think they were thrown out illegally, and we're working under the leadership of Inner City's David Smith and Deborah Hottinger to try to right that wrong. We're heading into depositions and in full swing discovery now. Finally, I want to share a story involving Andrick here, standing behind me, in which Andrick teamed up with Sheila Suraj, who's a paralegal at Inner City, to help a homeless man in his 80s. He's an Army veteran. He found himself at this time of his life in shelters, and he had no ID. That's a problem. You know, it's not an infrequent problem for Inner City's clients. Without a valid ID, or any ID, you can't access your Social Security, and without some Social Security, you can't pay for housing. So this man struck up a relationship, a friendship at Inner City with Sarah, and we agreed to sign on to try to help him get an ID. So we had to go to court to get the court to issue him a birth certificate. He had been born sometime in the late 1930s in some other state at home. There was no record of it. The Army had no problem with that, but you got to have a valid ID in order to access public benefits. So Sarah and Andrick looked all over and was able to marshal as many public records as they could find of his life. Who is this guy? So that we could go to court and ask the judge to please issue a birth certificate to him. Finally, this last April, it was court day. And James is his name, was staying in temporary housing about 30 minutes from the courthouse. Andrick got him a jacket to wear to court. And hired an Uber with wheelchair access to pick him up at this place and bring him to the courthouse and drop him off. This is Superior Court. And so it was court day. And Andrick and Sarah, the case was called, and where was James? He wasn't there. So the court continued the matter to another day, and Andrick and Sarah went up, where's James? The guards remember him. He came in, he told them he was coming to get his birth certificate. The Uber driver remembered dropping him off. He turned around and he left. He's in a wheelchair. And he couldn't be found. They spent 3 hours just walking the area. And the courthouse is on a hill. He's in a wheelchair. He's got no cell phone. He's got no money. Where is James? They could not find him. We were extremely worried. A couple of days later, somehow, a scrappy guy, he turns up at the place that he was living. We're terribly relieved. And at the continued court date, he appeared by cell phone before the judge. And just a couple of weeks ago, the judge issued him a birth certificate. So hopefully James will be allowed. He will have the means to stay where he is, which he finds very peaceful, and he likes it. So thank you for this award. We're so grateful for it and grateful for the opportunity to work with the excellent Inner City Law Center staff.
It's yours, Pam. You get to take it. You earned it. So congratulations to Pam and the entire team at Troutman Pepper. Thank you for all your support. Before we check in on how we're doing fundraising-wise, which is always fun to get that up on the screen, I do want to acknowledge 3 folks who are here with us today. We have all 3 of the clients who appeared in the video here with us today. So if I could ask Devin Pearson, Rosa Flores Marquez, and Robert Louis Smith III to stand up so we can thank you. Thank you for your resiliency, your perseverance, and for allowing us to share your story here today. Maybe we can throw the thermometer up on the screen and see how we're doing on the... Woo! So, in my job, I'm very good at saying both thank you and please keep going at the same time. So please keep going, but that's wonderful to see up there. We're going to have a special guest here who came down with COVID and is not able to make it, but Mayor Karen Bass was going to join us today and unfortunately cannot. She did send some thoughts about her dear friend, Sheila Kuehl, via video. So if we can cue that up, that would be wonderful.
Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure and my honor to speak on behalf of someone who is a dear friend, a mentor, and someone who many years ago suggested that I run for office. And when she did, I was horrified. I was working at Community Coalition at the time. Well, what do you mean run for office and leave the work in the community? Anyway, Sheila Kuehl said we need more women in office. And I am so excited that she is receiving this award today because it is something that is so well deserved. Her legacy in the state of California, actually, I could say in the nation, because the work that she did in California and even before then on domestic violence, violence against women, the landmark legislation that she did in Sacramento on so many different areas, and then coming back and serving on the Board of Supervisors. Sheila Kuehl has touched so many lives, one, through the area of public policy, and two, from mentoring and encouraging people like myself. Sheila, I wish I could be there with you, but virtually, I am just very excited to see you receive this award. And also, let me thank Inner City Law Center for the work that you do every day, and especially the work that you're doing right now in helping to prevent people from falling into homelessness. Thank you, everyone.
We have another special guest here today to introduce or to present the award to Supervisor Kuehl. We have from the 3rd District, LA County Supervisor Lindsay Horvath, who is making her way up here. Let me just say, while Supervisor Horvath is coming up, that Supervisor Horvath joined the Board of Supervisors just this past December and has already proven to be a very receptive ear to hearing in her office, to hearing about Inner City Law Center's clients' concerns, and we look forward to working with her in the years to come. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much for that kind welcome, and thank you all for being here to honor all of our honorees, but especially my dear friend, the one and only Senator Supervisor Woman Extraordinaire, Sheila Kuehl. I've been on a little bit of a tour lately, getting the opportunity to do this, and it is the greatest joy I've had in serving in office thus far, to be able to talk about the wonderful work that Sheila has done. And it's easy to talk about because we've all felt it. As the mayor has said, her work has spanned generations. It has touched every corner of our country. It has transformed lives in ways no one else ever has or ever could. And I think to receive a Humanitarian Award is exactly who Sheila Kuehl is. She has broken barriers and glass ceilings, not only through the legislation that she has passed, but by being the extraordinary human being she is each and every day. And I know in every struggle that I've ever had, if you've had Sheila Kuehl on your side as your advocate, you are in good hands. I just have to say that Sheila, I had the opportunity when she was leaving the board to say a few words at that moment. And I want to return to a term that I think is the most indicative of who she is, and that's heart-centered. I think her work embodies what it means to put people at the center of the work, not the process, and to treat those people with care and love and concern. She hasn't been somebody who comes from bureaucratic corners of government to make laws happen. She has been in the trenches with people in their most difficult and challenging moments, meeting them where they are, not just physically, not just mentally, but spiritually and emotionally, personally understanding their challenges. And she has synthesized all of that into every piece of legislation she's authored, whether it's been protecting families and women, as you heard the mayor indicate from her groundbreaking legislation and her help to create the Women's Law Center, to policies protecting our environment. And I know residents, for example, in the Santa Susana region have hope that they will be protected because of her legislation that requires cleanup of our environment, and her wonderful work at the AQMD, which was even referenced recently by Eric Previn. He called in yesterday to talk about your work on the AQMD, so don't worry, I know, we haven't forgotten. Specific, obviously, to the portfolio of Inner City Law Center, she helped to establish the county's $100 million affordable housing trust fund that we intend to continue see growing and, of course, spend down in all the right ways. She was instrumental in developing the county's homelessness initiative, which is now leading us in our shared declare state of emergency between the city and county on the issue of homelessness. She passed groundbreaking rent stabilization and eviction defense protections throughout Los Angeles County in the unincorporated areas, and has led inspired incorporated cities to take that initiative themselves. And she fought for the eviction moratorium under the COVID-19 pandemic, which prevented, as we all know, the possible eviction of hundreds of thousands of county residents. The numbers that we saw during this period of time would have been so much worse had it not been for her strong leadership and her command to say, this is how we will protect people during this time of crisis. There was no two ways about it. That we try sometimes to bring people together, and then sometimes you just have to take a side and take a stand. And Sheila Kuehl always stands on the side of the people who need help the most. She is a champion. She is a trailblazer. I can't resist saying during Pride Month, she has broken through boundaries and helped to save not just people's ability to work and perform in their professional lives, but to just stay alive because of who she has chosen to be out loud and proud. I cannot think of a better example of a humanitarian champion, and I am so honored to be able to present this award today to the one and only Sheila Kuehl.
Well, thank you so much to the Inner City Law Center for honoring me. People don't often just stand up and say really nice things about you. Have you noticed that in your lives? I mean, there's just no opportunity. And so I'm extremely grateful, Adam and Lindsay and all of you who have been there with me, for me, ahead of me. I stand on your shoulders, you stand on my shoulders. This is how it works. So I just want to say, I've been thinking this week, it's just a great time to be a lawyer. Don't you think? I mean, all of a sudden America is waking up and going, oh, I can't wait to turn on the TV and see what's happening in court. And why is that? I'm not making a joke about who's in court. I mean that it is, I have many friends who have heard me use this phrase, and every time I say it, it's like, oh, not the majesty of the law speech again. But it's the majesty of the law. I mean, I love the fact that this country established a judicial system whose job it was to keep accountable the other two branches at least. And beyond that, all of those in private businesses of all kind, or even as they treat each other as human beings. And to have us still thinking, great, they dragged him into court. Do you know what I mean? I mean, that's what 300 million people are thinking right now. I mean, maybe they are not all saying great, but most of them. And you know, Alexander Hamilton called it the least dangerous branch. And the reason he said that was because it could neither declare war, nor could it adopt the budget. That's really what he said. And yet I think it may be the least dangerous in terms of doing harm to individuals. Certainly less dangerous than legislatures, even those in which I've served, or executive branches that we've all seen. But also, it could be the most important branch. And that, I think, is what people are looking at more and more now. And yet you have known it all along. You attorneys, you judges, you support staff, you friends, you family. It's like, how are you going to get people to do the right thing? We all hope when we wake up in the morning that people will do the right thing, that they will care about their tenants, and many do, that they will care about homeless people, and many do, but many don't. 2 years after I graduated from law school, Nancy Minty graduated from law school and decided that she was going to set up business in a trailer, kind of a rusty trailer as I remember, trying to make certain that people who were homeless or in danger of becoming homeless could literally get their day in court, for which, of course, there had to be some law that you would go into court and plead so that you could get help for people. And that really led, I think, to the greatness of this institution, as this inner city law center has led to the greatness of anything that we've done for homeless people in this county and in our 88 cities. Nancy Minty, we knew her, didn't we, Abby? Abby, where are you? There you are. When Abby Liebman and I, really Abby Liebman, started the California Women's Law Center and said, oh, okay, Sheila, you can come along too. And literally, I'm just saying, okay, this was Abby's idea, and I said, how about, did you partner? And she said, well, okay. We were in a different set of trenches, and yet understood and knew Nancy, and knew so well what she was trying to do. And how she said, I believe that the law can do this, but somebody has got to go make them do it. And that's why I love being in a room like this, I'm just saying honestly, more than any other room, a room full of lawyers. It's not where most people say they want to be, and they're wrong. Because I know you. I know the heart and soul that you put into the work that you do. I know the pro bono work that you do. I know what the judges do, because my sister just retired from being the presiding judge of the juvenile court in Sacramento. It is thankless, it is grueling, it is heartbreaking, but I want to tell you, even when we fail, it's important that we're there. I think you know, though it never feels good to lose, it never feels good to try and not get there. And from what we've heard today, that doesn't happen all that often at the Inner City Law Center. Because of the work of the staff, almost 70 on the staff now, as opposed to when Nancy started and it was, oh, Nancy Minty, table for one, I mean, really. And the work that you have done, the leadership, Adam, that you have provided, that the board provides, people just don't know outside. So I want to say, I feel really good that America is coming more and more to understand that they wouldn't have any rights at all if it weren't for lawyers. Somebody has to go in and fight to make those words on paper come alive, to make them mean something. You could amend the Constitution after the Civil War, and you could talk about the equal protection of the law. But as Abby and I found out, the good question is, equal to what? Who needs to be equal to who? What does that mean? We need interpretation. And thank God for Marbury versus Madison, because although now we're not so happy about the Supreme Court, generally over time, they have articulated the kinds of standards that have led to the ability for many, many of us in minority populations to have rights. Rights that we thought were there all along, but had to be declared. Rights that we thought were there all along, but had to be fought for. And it just doesn't stop. So I want to thank you for the work you've done. I want to thank you even more for the work you're going to do, and that we're all going to do, because nothing is ever finished. And it seems like it's 5 steps forward, 3 steps back sometimes. But at least that's 2 steps forward. And if we can protect what we've got, if we can argue for the helpless, argue for those who have no family or friends, argue for those who have no power at all in society, argue, argue, argue. That's what we do best. We fight and we argue. And I think, frankly, those kinds of arguments are a real basis for joy in living. I am so happy to have been part of the legal system for a great many decades. And I intend to keep exhorting you to do this, because, I mean, who could do better than to try to bring more and more justice into society and be paid for it? What a job! That's what it was like to be elected. That's what it's like to fight the way you do in court. That's what it's like for those of you sitting on the bench. And I thank you again for this honor, because there's nothing better than to be praised by the praiseworthy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheila, and thank you to Troutman Pepper as well. I also want to acknowledge we have Councilwoman Anna Maria Quintana from the City of Bell with us today, so thank you for joining us. I want to thank a few other folks as well. I want to add my thanks to the 125 staff at Inner City Law Center, many of whom, as you saw, are here today, for all that you do day in and day out. It's a pleasure to work with you. And also to the 35 members of Inner City Law Center's board for the direction, the strategic direction that you provide to the organization, and also to ensure that we have the resources we need to carry out our mission. I also want to thank the many folks who put so much work into having this event today be such a success. On staff, that's Vicki, Kim, Luke, and Jackie. And then Eric and Kim and the entire luncheon committee for all that you have done as well. Thank you. If we can throw up the thermometer one more time, just so we can see how we're doing. So it's still going up. We will go back this afternoon and check our mailbox to see what has come in today, and we will keep checking. You will get an email if you're here today, encouraging you to continue contributing and share this with others as well who might be interested. We are going to keep pushing till we get to that 100. We're very good at pushing for such things. But I want to close by just saying thank you to all of you for coming today. Whether you are a staff member, a client, a donor, a board member, a volunteer, however it is that you have chosen to plug in with Inner City Law Center, we could not do it without you. You enable us to achieve so much more than we could otherwise achieve. So please go forward and enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you for being here.